definitely possible to protect against the current threats because we have proven technology out there today that if a threat exists, you should be able to catch it. So that's not only the traditional antivirus, for example, but also the newer technologies that are coming out, that are already out, like machine learning, anti-exploit technologies, will protect you against those existing current threats. But what the new technology is also exceedingly good at is protecting against some of those future threats, some of the things that we don't yet know about. However, the technology is made in such a way that it is somewhat predictive. It can have a look at today's threats and then look forward and see, what are the characteristics that might be abused either down the road, or in the case of things like exploit prevention, just simply looking at what's the technique that's being used, and then block that technique, and then you can block a future threat that is using that same technique. We do exchange a lot of information in the security community. That's something that a lot of people don't realize. We are in a community. We are all after the same result, which is keep people safe and secure. And the way we do that is not only through having our own products, but then sharing intelligence between the different cybersecurity companies, the different research labs out there, just to understand where it's all going, what's happening. We can't, not any one person, not any one company can have visibility into every single deep, dark corner of the internet. And so by pooling our resources together with the same goal in mind of protecting people, we end up doing a lot of good, yeah. This actual size of the database grows every day. I don't have an actual number. It's terabytes. There's just a lot of information in there. As you can imagine from the previous question, we're bringing information in from our intelligence partners, if you will, right? The other AV companies out there, the other security companies. But we also get information from our customers and our partners. And then like most research labs out there, we do have automated systems like things like honeypots, right? They're dedicated systems that look vulnerable, that are meant to be a target that a hacker would want to go after, that also collect intelligence. And throughout all of these different avenues, we're able to grow our data set, and then that is what provides the analysis, or the analysis base for us to look at what cyber criminals are doing, and then from that decide how are we going to protect. Yeah, so artificial intelligence has obviously been one of these things in the news the last couple of years, and it's the kind of tool that I think is largely misunderstood by a lot of people. What it is, it's just a different way of approaching threat protection. In the past, we had to see a threat before we could protect against it. Then a little bit of time went on, and we developed some proactive techniques where we would see traits of a threat. Maybe we hadn't seen that particular threat before, but we'd see some traits, and then we can block based on that. And artificial intelligence is really it's taking that idea and carrying it forward so that we can use the power of a computer to massively analyze data that a human analyst can't. And this is where the two of them really complement each other. As humans are really good at certain tasks and recognizing certain patterns, and computers are really good at processing massive amounts of data given specific instructions and specific learning and training. And so, when we talk about machine learning, when we talk about these kinds of algorithms, we see them in the daily world every single day, right? When when Google throws up a CAPTCHA, those click on every image that's got a car in it, right? You're helping the Google machine learning algorithm recognize cars because it has trouble doing it itself. Whereas a human, you can do it in a fraction of a second. So what machine learning is going to do is it's going to help us process massive amounts of data and help us identify and pick out some of the areas that are really interesting and worth more research. That's how we use it in the labs. And from that, we can develop products that better protect people using machine learning. And it's kind of a cycle, right? That it both informs and protects at the same time. It's unfortunate, right, that you hear of these stories where attackers, and in some cases it's years, right? They sit around in these networks, they steal data, they cause more damage, and unfortunately there are tools out there today that you can use to prevent some of this from happening. And just simply knowing, I like to call it knowing your baseline. There's a lot of noise. If you look at your firewall logs and your endpoint logs, there's a lot of noise every single day, all the different activities going on. But if you know what a typical day looks like without bad guys running around, you're better able to look at the two of them and go, okay, this is a typical day, this is not a typical day, and it kind of, things should pop out, right? And that's one of the things you can do is really get to understand, what does my network traffic look like? What does my just typical data traffic look like in a given day? And apply policies around that. And then obviously you've got tools that you can use that are protective and predictive as well, that can help identify some of these things. One of the areas that we're looking into is authentication and continuous authentication, right? Signing in once with your password, that's easy. It's what we call frictionless, right? There's not a lot of effort there. But once you're signed in, you've got access to all the resources. And so if a cyber criminal can use maybe compromised password to get into your system, they have access to everything. That's why things like two-factor authentication are important, and why things like continuous authentication, meaning I'm going to keep testing the system and its properties to make sure that it still looks like a normal system. Does it still look like John's logged in, or does it look like John's evil twin is logged in? So, those are just a couple examples. There's obviously many more, but knowing what a normal day looks like is a good start. So it's funny that you say that, because it kind of refers back to my last answer, which is, there's lots of threats. They come and go. We had a whole day here talking about threats today, and I demonstrated some of them. Some are old and some will be new. But if you're not doing the security basics right as a company, then to me that's the greatest threat. Because even an old threat can impact you if you're not doing the security basics right. And all too often, in many of these breaches and many of these hacks that we see, it's because the security basics weren't done right. A server was put out on the internet, weak credentials were used, no monitoring, operating system was out of date. All of these things are relatively easy to fix. And if we start doing the security basics right, then we start shutting the criminals out of our networks, and we're one step closer to being completely secure.